Shabbat Shalom. Esav seethed with resentment against Yaakov over the blessing his father had blessed him. And Esav said in his heart, as soon as the time for mourning my father comes around, I will kill Yaakov, my brother. And Rivka was told the words of Esav, her eldest son. And she sent and summoned Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, look, Esav, your brother, is consoling himself with the idea that he will kill you. So now, my son, listen to my voice and rise. Flee to my brother Lavan in Haran, and you may stay with him a while, until your brother's wrath subsides, until your brother's rage against you subsides and he forget what you did to him. And I shall send and fetch you from there. Why should I be bereft of both of you in one day? This scene, of course, is from the end of last week's Parashat Toldot. As this week's Parashat Vayetze opens, Yaakov is a fugitive who comes upon a certain place and stops there to spend the night because the sun has set. He takes some of the stones of the place, sets them at his head and lies down to sleep. There he has his legendary dream of angels ascending and descending a stairway which is set on the ground and whose top reaches to heaven. He experiences a vision of God standing above the stairway who reaffirms to him the promises made to Abraham and Yitzchak, namely that the land will be his and his descendants, who will be as numerous as the dust of the earth, and who will spread far and wide, and that all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by them. God promises to be with Yaakov, to protect him and to bring him back to the land. It is an extraordinary passage. Yaakov's dream has a mystical quality. It is lofty and majestic. But in this whole narrative, Yaakov does not appear lofty or majestic at all. He's rather unremarkable. He's born second, holding on to the heel of his twin brother Esav. He is a follower, not a leader. As a young man, he is described as Tam, Yoshev Ohalim, a simple man, a dweller in tents. The word Tam suggests integrity, but also innocence. He seems introverted, fragile, and passive. He's obedient and easily manipulated by his mother. It is his mother, Rivka, who tells him to dress up as Esav and trick his father to get the blessing. It is Rivka who tells him to escape and stay away for a while. Rivka who instructs him who he should and should not marry. Yaakov appears weak and vulnerable. In her wonderful book, Reading Genesis, the writer Marilyn Robinson observes, odd words like feckless, hapless can be applied to Yaakov. And then in time, words like pitiable and tragic. That night, on his journey to Haran, Yaakov falls asleep and dreams of the stairway. This is what the Midrash tells us about the angels who were going up and down their stairway. When the angels ascended to heaven, they found the image of Yaakov carved in the worlds above, illuminated by the divine splendor, and they admired it. But when they descended to look at the original, they found him asleep. He looked so ordinary and unimpressive. They were completely disillusioned. So they pushed him, jumped over him, and mocked him. And they quoted the words of the prophet Isaiah, adding a question mark at the end. You are my servant Israel, in whom I glory? Up in heaven, he was luminous, a luminous hero. Down on earth, he was disappointing, a pale man who had fallen asleep. Another midrash. The angels going up and down the stairway were the rulers of different empires. When they were up, they were important and powerful. But eventually, each would have to come down. First, the ruler of Babylonia, then the ruler of Media, then the ruler of Greece, and finally, the ruler of Edom, a descendant of Esav, representing Rome. The Holy One said to Yaakov, come up. But Yaakov was afraid and said, they all have to come down. I will have to come down too. The Holy One said to Yaakov, Al tira avdi Yaakov, do not be afraid, my servant Jacob. If you come up now, you will never go down. But Yaakov, said the Midrash, did not believe God. And he hesitated, unable to conquer his fear. So the Holy One said to him, if you had trusted me and had come up, you would have remained up until the end. But since you could not trust me and did not come up, your children will be in exile and will serve these 4 empires. Yaakov was even more afraid and asked, will it last forever? No, said the Holy One. It will not last forever. Yaakov woke up from his dream and said, Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh, v'anochi lo yadati. Surely God is in this place, and I did not know. The Torah tells us, Vayira, Yaakov was afraid. And he said, Ma nura hamakom hazeh, en ze ki im beit Elohim, v'ze shar hashamayim. How fearsome is this place. This can be none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of the heavens. Early in the morning, Yaakov rose, took the stones he had placed at his head, and set them up as a pillar, poured oil over its top, and called the name of that place Beit El, the house of God. Yaakov could not free himself from his doubts, his anxiety, and his fear. He wanted to go up the stairway, but he simply could not. Perhaps the stairway symbolizes Yaakov's divided self. He has the potential for spiritual greatness. He has his father's blessing. He has God's promise, but he's not ready to rise. He stays down here. He reaches Laban's house eventually and occupies himself with the ordinary, practical, down-to-earth matters of life. He falls in love, he works hard, he marries, he has children, he becomes wealthy. And he seems always to be afraid, always afraid of his wives, his children, his father-in-law. Until one day, some 20 years later, God speaks to Yaakov again in a dream. Yaakov. And Yaakov says, here I am. God says, I am the God who appeared to you at Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made me a vow. Now rise, leave this land and return to the land of your birthplace. Some 20 years have passed, and God gives him a second chance. I am the God who appeared to you at Bethel, the place where you could have risen, but did not trust me or yourself. You were timid and afraid. Like the stairway, you remained on the ground, though you could have reached heaven. You were a fearful fugitive, And yet, you are also a dreamer. You could have embraced spiritual greatness, but your fears held you back. Now Yaakov has the opportunity to confront himself, to face what has long terrified him, to take a risk, to make a change and to rise, not merely to live an unremarkable life in this world down here, but to step into his full destiny and his greatness. For that, we'll have to wait until next week for Parashat Vayishlach, when Yaakov struggles with the angel and becomes Israel. In the meantime, let me say that we have been living for far too long as Jews in this lower, down here dimension, preoccupied, if not obsessed, with our growing fears about anti-Semitism from the right and the left, stranded and fixated on October 7th, consumed with questions of who loves us, who hates Israel, on the mayoral election before or after, on Mamdani, and so on and so forth. And in the process, we have largely neglected addressing anything else. Just listen to the discourse in Jewish publications, on the internet, in synagogue pulpits, and in other Jewish institutions and communal spaces. We have been so focused for decades on our material well-being, now on our fears and our safety. So focused on those things, we have not paid enough attention to our spiritual and moral aspirations, to a Judaism that is a pathway to holiness, to wisdom and morality, to a state of Israel that strives to live up to its ethical ideals. Of course, this is not an either-or binary. The stairway rests on the ground. It is entirely natural and necessary and important to be concerned for our well-being and our safety, to protect ourselves and our communities. That is not the problem. The problem arises when those concerns consume us to the point that we neglect the spiritual and moral dimension of our lives as Jews and as a Jewish community. Yes, the stairway is set on the ground, but its top reaches to heaven. If we neglect to dream, if we are hesitant about rising and nurturing moral vision, we will not ascend. And if we do not ascend, we risk coming further down. Ultimately, the challenge before us is to shift, to enrich and elevate our communal conversation. We have to move beyond fear and preoccupation with safety and survival alone, and place our spiritual and moral aspirations at the center of our communal discourse. The past 2 years since October 7 have brought tremendous loss and disruption. A lot in Judaism also has been severely damaged. Judaism has been discredited as a tradition that upholds the sanctity of life, that seeks holiness, nobility, justice, and compassion. There is urgent work to be done to rebuild a Judaism that is honorable and that can guide us towards spiritual depth and moral vision. It is imperative and urgent that we embrace this opportunity now and make the cultivation of a morally and spiritual vibrant Judaism central to our conversations, our aspirations, and our pursuit. May we dare to dream again and to rise. Shabbat Shalom.